I have to admit, Gotham Knight was never on my radar, and the reason is quite simple, because back then when the game was released I haven't had a very powerful PC, and on the console this game still runs just with 30 FPS, and yeah, 30 FPS is... I just don't like it, okay? But now the game is on Game Pass, now I have a powerful PC, and now it's about time to talk about HDR. In this video I mainly focused on the PC version, but in regards of HDR, the console version, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are pretty much the same. So we need to understand that this game does not support the HDR system level calibration. Not on the Xbox, not on the PlayStation 5 and not on the PC. Unfortunately, we have also no setting in the game where we can change directly the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights, and therefore, according to my analysis, the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights is limited to maximum 1000 nits, which is okay for my LG G2, but not good enough for my S95C. So let's talk about the HDR in-game settings, what we have in Gotham Knights, and we have brightness, contrast and saturation. Brightness is changing the average picture brightness of the game, and when you have a look on the waveform or on the maximum CLL numbers, then you can see when I'm increasing or decreasing this value to the maximum settings or minimum settings, the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights is always the same. So again, we have literally no settings actually in this game where we can change the maximum peak brightness, because the same counts for the contrast setting. So contrast is giving us a very washed out picture or a very dark picture where we have a lot of black level crush. So, but again, you can see that the maximum peak brightness is still limited to roughly 1000 nits. And last but not least, we have the saturation settings, and this is maybe a surprise to you, but this setting is really changing the saturation. So that means you can have a very vivid, colorful picture, or if you prefer this, you can have a black and white picture. So let's talk about one of the most important qualities in a good HDR implementation, the HDR black level floor. And I'm very happy that I can tell you that in regards of the HDR black level floor, this game is actually spot on. But if you still think the game looks a little bit washed out, and believe me, it is not because of the HDR black level floor, it is because of creators' intent. But if you still think the game looks a little bit washed out, you can change the contrast to your liking. But yeah, there are as always some disadvantages as well, and we're going to talk about this in a second. But again, in regards of the HDR black level floor, I'm very happy. The contrast in this game is just fantastic. I just wish that we would have some settings where we can change the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights. But to be very honest, on my LG G2 or the CX, this game looks just fantastic. Just on the S95C, I have the feeling that I'm missing something, but that's really complaining on a very high level. So let's talk about HDR colors. And for all the BT 2020 hardcore fans out there, I have actually very good news for you. So right now, the picture what you see here in regards of color space, what is used in the game, is with the settings set to 50. So everything is set to 50. Brightness 50, contrast 50 and saturation 50. And as you can see, not much is going on in regards of HDR colors. So the yellow stuff or yellow colors, what you can see on the screen, is actually DCI-P3 color. And here in the background, the bar sign is actually showing some sort of BT 2020 colors because it is blue. But again, not much of HDR color space used on this or in this very moment. But we can actually change this, because all what you have to do is increase the saturation setting like crazy and you get this. And here right now on the analyzer screen, it really doesn't look too bad, to be very honest, because we have a lot of HDR color space used, but in real, it looks just very oversaturated to me at the moment. So the colors are too vibrant. and just very much oversaturated. And you lose, of course, some details in very bright colors as well. But if you like this, then you're good to go, because I mean, at the end, you have to enjoy the game. In regards of the HDR colors, this is the easiest and simplest way and the quickest way to get actually HDR colors on your screen. But I would actually recommend to give my recommended settings a try and let me know what you think. And I would recommend to give the following settings a try: brightness set to 60, contrast set to 55, and saturation set to 55. And that's the picture in regards of color space, what you are getting with my recommended settings. So much more use of the DCI-P3 color space and much more use of the BT2020 color space without looking too much oversaturated or cartoonish. And the difference between my recommended settings and the standard settings are, in my opinion, quite obvious, especially when we have a nice side-by-side comparison. You can see that the colors are popping more. The specular highlights are actually slightly brighter or also more vibrant, in my opinion. And contrast is actually still on a very great level. So the HDR black level floor is still without any issue. I really like my settings, but again, those are just my settings. Maybe you have better ones, and you can share this with us. Thank you.